Welcome to today's Explainer. So, today we're tackling a financial headline that honestly sounds almost too good to be true. We are unpacking a surprisingly optimistic report about American credit card debt actually dropping. But, as you might suspect, there is a whole lot more happening beneath the surface here. So let's dive into the data together and figure out what's really going on.
Section 1. The misleading headline. If you've been glancing at the financial news lately, you've probably seen headlines pushing this exact narrative right now. American credit card debt just dropped. Honestly, hearing that, it sounds like fantastic news, right? It gives this impression of a major economic turnaround, like households are finally breathing a little easier. But I've got to set the premise right here at the start. While the words in that quote are technically true based on the data, the narrative it creates is highly misleading. Let's look at the actual numbers they're quoting. According to the latest Federal Reserve report for the first quarter of 2026, credit card balances did actually fall. They dropped by a very impressive-sounding $25 billion. Now, when you hear a number like $25 billion with a B, it's incredibly easy to assume that a massive shift in consumer behavior just happened. It sounds like a literal mountain of debt was just wiped right off the map. That $25 billion drop brought the total American credit card debt down to land at $1.25 trillion. So, on paper, looking strictly at this one specific metric from one specific moment in time, it really does make it look like people are finally getting their debt under control. You see a downward trend, you see a total balance shrinking, and you think, awesome, we're moving in the right direction. But as we know in the world of financial data, context is absolutely everything. Number 2, the seasonal catch.
What's really interesting here is that this downward dip isn't some rare historic event. It happens almost every single year. Think about it for a second. November and December are filled with gifts, travel, and, maybe a few too many festive celebrations put on the credit card. Come January, that holiday hangover sets in, and people use the first quarter to pay off that specific spending spree, so balances naturally dip at the start of every single year. I want to emphasize this heavily, because it's probably the most misunderstood part of this whole report. This predictable early year dip is absolutely not a sign that Americans have suddenly improved their financial habits. It's not a structural change in how we manage money. It's simply the mechanical hangover of holiday spending being cleared out. If you go on a massive shopping spree in December and then pay off a fraction of it in February, you haven't suddenly become debt-free. You're just following the standard seasonal calendar.
Section 3. The bigger picture.
Okay, so when we zoom out and contrast that short-term $25 billion drop with the year-over-year data, the real story emerges. By comparing the first quarter of this year to the exact same time last year, we completely eliminate that holiday distortion. And the reality? It's pretty shocking. Total balances didn't shrink. They actually grew by a massive $70 billion. Let this stark realization sink in for a moment. Despite the heavily reported and celebrated drop, everyday Americans are actually in a deeper hole than they were last year. The burden has grown. When the headlines say debt dropped, they just mean it dropped from its absolute peak the day after Christmas, not that the overall trajectory of debt is actually going down. The truth is, people are carrying way more credit card debt today than they were 12 months ago.
Number 4, the interest rate twist. Now we absolutely have to talk about interest rates. Right now, credit card annual percentage rates, or APRs, are sitting near record highs. So not only is the total amount of debt higher than it was a year ago, but the penalty for carrying that debt has completely skyrocketed.
Let's break down the actual cost of debt. This is the actual price you pay in interest just to carry a balance from month to month. Because we're seeing these record high APRs, the actual cost of carrying debt hasn't gotten any cheaper. Even if someone's principal balance dips slightly because, say, they made a payment in February, the incredibly high interest rates mean they're being charged more to service whatever debt is actually left. It is literally more expensive to be in debt today than it was a year ago. The headline number might have improved slightly on paper, but the actual everyday financial pressure on the average person hasn't eased up at all. If anything, it's squeezing tighter. Section 5. Spotting the real trend.
So the crucial point is this. Whenever you read financial headlines claiming a sudden victory, you really must ask these two critical questions. First, is the balance higher year over year? Remember, ignore the seasonal month-to-month noise and look at where we were exactly 12 months ago. And second, is the interest rate making it worse? A slightly lower balance at a massively higher interest rate is definitely not a win for the consumer. These two questions are the real story. The story the media usually skips right past in favor of a flashy, simplistic headline.
This brings us to the end of our explainer today, and I want to leave you with a direct question to really think about. Are you actively paying down credit card debt right now? Or did this hidden reality about rising year-over-year balances and record interest rates catch you off guard? I would absolutely love to hear your experiences, so please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember to subscribe, because we're going to be right here every week, keeping you informed by breaking down the real numbers behind the headlines. Thanks for learning with me today, and keep asking those critical questions.